Hello, this is Greg Alson with Green Greg's coming to you on 25 March 22. Time on deck is 2400 hours Central Daylight Time. Excuse me. And I have a special guest tonight, Dr. Arthur Bradley. Now, Dr. Bradley is a PhD electrical engineer working at NASA Langley. And he has written quite a few books on preparedness. He has a website that's got the disaster preparedness products. He's got a YouTube channel, and he spoke at many conferences, including my own last Power Grid Defense Conference back in 2018. So Dr. Bradley, I've had him on my channel before, and tonight we need to talk about what you need to do to safeguard your home, your car, your electronics as best as you can, given the trials coming at us. My friends, right now we are in a really bad situation vis-a-vis Russia. There's a lot of potential for mayhem there. We could wind up in a war with mushroom clouds or an Emp event. And the sun has a ginormous new sunspot headed toward us. We're coming back into a new solar maximum. The potential for solar storms is always on the charts. And as Earth's magnetic sphere drops in field strength, the risk that even smaller storms might cause us damage becomes a higher possibility. There have been some estimates that NASA has put out in the past that said we may be up to 14% chance per decade of getting a coronal mass ejection on par with the Hardened event. Whether or not that's the case, there is some evidence that says it even suggests maybe it's more probable than we thought, or smaller storms may take out our grid too, like the 1921 railroad event, which the size is debated by some people. You may know in 1989 there was a Hardened event, and not Hardened event, there was a Quebec hydro event that occurred that took out the power grid in Quebec. And my friends, I've heard some channels say, well, if you're on the night side, you don't have to worry about it. But that was on the night side, my friends, because the Earth's magnetosphere is a system. And when those come in, the energy from the sun, it goes all the way around. You're not better off on one side of the Earth or the other. We're all vulnerable. The entire planet could be taken down by storm sufficiently strong. Let's hope that don't happen anytime before we get a grid hardened, which some of us are working to do. Anyway, I've jabbered enough about that. This is part of my series helping you prepare for an EMP. My eyes wide open, head on the swivel series too. So you need to subscribe to my channel and bang that notification bell and click all so you get notifications of my videos if you've not already done so, because I bring a lot of content about our grid, about our nuclear power plant spent fuel rods. I bring a lot of content to you about what's going on in the world, to include such things as wild edibles, where you eat free from the weeds and trees, or gardening. And right now it's springtime. If you've not planted your seeds, you need to plant your garden now and get ready to buy your seeds. With food prices going up, with the possible shortages in food right now, seeds are a great investment in the future. You really need to get those and get ready to garden. There'll be a good barter item if the monetary system goes down. So go to the link below for True Leaf Market. My link to True Leaf Market. They got a great selection of non-GMO seeds that are seeds that you can replant, get the same thing back. They're open air pollinated. They're not hybrid seeds. So all that said, I'll bring you my guest tonight, Dr. Bradley. Dr. Bradley, what worries you the most? What keeps you up at night?
Right now, this whole situation with Russia and Ukraine is keeping me awake quite a bit. I think this thing has the ability to get away from us and be something none of us thought was going to. That's worrying me right now, more so than the pandemic is, frankly.
Amen. Amen. The bug, is just what it is. It's got a low fatality rate. This other scenario can be beyond our imaginations. And the fact that countries are doing what they're doing and entertaining the thoughts and the discussions we're having right now, it's very unsettling, to put it mildly. Very unsettling. So I think it's more important now that we start to consider hardening and taking care of our homes, our automobiles, our personal electronics. And of course, there's those outfits out there that promise you that they give you absolutely ironclad, we will have you 100% covered and you can take 42 hits or whatever. I find that hilariously ludicrous. especially knowing what kind of amperage these events could take. When their wires aren't no bigger than the wire from my computer mouse. And we've seen things that carry like 1,500, 3,000 amps for some of these events. So that stuff's very laughable to me. But what we can do, what is possible, is that we buy down the risk for our homes. We can give ourselves higher protection. There's no guarantees, but we can give ourselves higher protection. So in that regard, Dr. Bradley, now Dr. Bradley is, like I said, he is a PhD in electrical engineering. I have a BS in electrical engineering myself. So it's not quite as high as him. At least I was, magna cum laude at my school. UAH was not an easy school, but I got my PhD's in hard knocks. But Dr. Bradley has brought a lot to the table here. He does a lot of testing. He personally tests a lot of things for their effectivity. He's got his own lab. He's done a lot of work in this area. I mean, on the side beyond what he does at NASA Langley. So Dr. Bradley, first off, our homes. I worry that, our homes could even catch fire and burn down in some of these events. What do you think about that? And what do you advise people to do to take care of their home? Because that's our biggest concern.
Sure. Yeah. So, I agree with you that EMP protection in general is kind of you do your best and you hope like you said, you buy down the risk a bit. So we need to understand going into this, there's no proven surefire way to protect everything you've got. But I'll give you some tips and tricks that I think might improve your chances of things not being damaged. So for a home, you think about there's a couple of different threats, right? There's the threat of all the energy that's going to come in on the power lines, right? And that, as you said, that could be quite damaging. So you want to try and cut that off as quick as you can, and before it has a chance to come in and over voltage everything and have all kind of problems. So I advise 3 steps on that to protect from that incident conducted surge. First is get a really good surge protection device and put it at your main panel. I don't sell any. I never sold any. I recommend one. I like the Siemens FS140. It's a good product. I took apart about 12 of them on a video I did some time back, and it's a very good product. It has a lot of good devices in it. The other product, there's an Eaton product that's also quite good. I think it's CHP2 Ultra or something like that. You can look it up on Amazon. Those are both really good products. They're hard to find now because everybody's buying them. But you put one of those on the house. So you have to get an electrician if you're not good with it yourself. They wire into a breaker.
Hey, would you repeat that Siemens device name again?
Sure. It's called the First Surge 140, FS140. And the 140 just refers to how many thousands of amps it can take in a current surge. 140,000 amps.
So that's FS 140. Okay.
Yeah, FS for first surge, right? So that's my favorite one. The Eaton one is a good one, not quite as heavy duty as the Siemens one, but both very good. You can get them and put them on your house. You can add a couple of whole house ferrites, which are just, there's nothing magical. You can buy a ferrite, but what happens is if you put them around a wire and you get too much current through that wire, the ferrite just saturates with magnetic flux, right? You probably might remember some of that from your days.
It's a choke. It's a choke.
It's a choke, and you saturate if you put too much current through it. So if you put a little tiny gap in the ferrite, but it has to be precise down to the mil, to the thousandth of an inch, you can get it where it doesn't saturate nearly as well. You trade off performance with saturation, and there's sort of a sweet spot you can get in there. So I developed that a number of years ago. It's an old trick that magnetic engineers use, where you introduce a very small gap in these ferrites. If you put those on the power wires, they work with the surge protector to kind of beat down that pulse a little bit and spread out the energy. And then it gives the surge protector time to kind of kick on and shunt some of it away.
What a choke does, or a ferrite, is they put a back EMF on the line. When that current comes in, they resist a change in current level.
Exactly.
And so when the current is surging in, their back EMF tries to put the current back in the other direction.
Right.
And they try to induce a counter current essentially. And so it's like a destructive interference for those that know signal processing. So that helps. And most of us, when we're designing electronics, we actually put chokes in a lot of the input lines into our electronics boxes.
Mm-hmm. Help filter things, sure.
It filters out noise, or or for high frequencies, we'll put what we call a bypass capacitors, tuned for various frequencies. That's beyond the subject of our video here today, but there's a lot we can do in these regards. So anybody that's got a one device approach is missing it, because you need to do several things to protect your home. And I really like he talks about the ferrets and a surge protector, and he talks about like Siemens is a high quality. I want to share with y'all the Siemens, show y'all. You can actually buy it on Amazon, and it's a whole lot cheaper than certain other products you see advertised a lot and talked about. They don't make you crazy guarantees with this thing, but it's high quality components.
Hey, that's nice. They got them in stock in ships in 6 to 10 days. That's they haven't been in stock for a long time. So if somebody wants one, they ought to grab that.
Yeah, not a bad idea. It might be a good time to get it. So there's like you said, there's no guarantee. This thing is not, it don't tell you that you're going to be able to survive multiple hits, or you don't know if you'll survive any, but it gives you a little better chance, especially if you couple it with something. I wouldn't think that by itself it could do it, really and truly, but if you couple it with a ferrite input, then you made your chances a little bit better.
Yeah, and the third thing I tell people is, so you put those high saturation ferrites on the power panel wires, and then inside the home, for the third step, is you put these broadband ferrites, which are just ferrites that have suppression across broad frequencies. You put those around the power cords of some of your critical appliances like computers and things like that that are very sensitive. Between those three steps, you have a pretty good shot that things aren't going to, that maybe, just maybe, everything's going to make it through it in time for you to open up your breaker panel before the big surge from E3 comes in. Because once that comes in, none of those things will protect against E3. You got to open up the breaker to protect against that.
Yes, that's just it. And that's something you don't hear with a lot of stories you're giving. Yeah, the E3 is going to last longer and it's going to cook. E1's a fast pulse. E2 is like lightning.
Right.
But that E3 is going to cook things because it lasts longer. It's a long wave.
Right.
So now, what was your third step? So I got the ferrite, the surge protector ferrite. What was the third step?
So the first one is the surge protector. Second is the high saturation ferrites at the panel, and the third one are the broadband ferrites around the power cords of individual appliances.
Oh, okay. Well, that makes sense.
Yep.
So one of the questions I get the most is what to do about your photovoltaic solar arrays, and I tell people to do ferrets. This is what I tell them to do.
That's what I tell people too. You get on the PV wires up near the panels and put a big ferrite and put a second one down near the inverter. And at least the energy that couples into those long wires, won't drive back into the inverter and up into the panels. If you have it on a transfer switch, you can also put some high saturation ferrites on those feeds from the transfer switch.
Okay. So this happens to be Dr. Bradley's website here, and these are the ferrets that he developed himself. And like I said, Dr. Bradley has a PhD in this, and he's got his own testing lab. So he's been able to develop these and test them quite well. You go to the home page here. Well, my computer's slowed it down. What it is, I'm having a hard time getting some things just to move. I don't know if it's the internet or what. But and tell us about this device, Dr. Bradley.
Yeah, so it's been some time in the development. I'm really excited about this Emp Alert. It's a brand new product. It's probably not going to be actually available in people's hands for about a couple of months. But what it does is I did a little video, you guys can watch it. It detects the radiated pulse of an E1. So when the E1 event happens, it will sound an alarm for about 2 seconds. And then as the E3 happens, where the voltage starts to climb on the power lines, it will sound a continuous alarm to tell you that, hey, the voltages are getting out of spec on your power lines and you need to do something about it. And that gives you an opportunity that something's going terribly wrong with your power levels. You can go out and open your main breaker before the levels get too high and cause real damage. So it's kind of a it detects E1, E2, and E3, both conducted and radiated, and gives you an alarm.
I'd say if you want to try to stop the E3, you better run, because once that starts, you try to throw your switch, there's not enough distance between the contacts to stop it. It's going to jump the gap.
Certainly, if it gets in the thousands of volts, that's right. So you want to get to it before it gets super high voltage.
And it might jump the gap anyway. You might want a piece of rubber to slap on one of those leads. Yeah, when I was in the military, they taught us that we had to have the cables of a radio set totally disconnected, nowhere near anything in the power and the signal lines, all the inputs, because we were told it would jump the gap. So, and I've seen the large transformer stations, they're high power switches. When they open the switch, that arc will go
Oh
through
yeah.
the air.
Oh yeah.
You know
Yeah.
what, 20 to 30 feet, you know, you'd be
Yeah.
like a bolt of lightning going through the airs or separating the contacts because it just,
Sure.
it don't want to stop.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. If you're driving a lot of current through the breaker at the time you try and switch it, it's going to be a problem like that.
oh,
That's
maybe,
why you
yeah.
want to open it early.
Yeah, and you don't know how long you got before that E3 gets to you. That's why I said you better run and hope you can make it. I'll know this though, once you get something like it coming in your house, it's too late. You know, everything's going to fry.
Yeah, it doesn't matter even with the surge protectors and other things. If you don't open the breaker and E3 comes in, it'll cook your surge protector and it'll cook things in the house. There's not much you can do about that.
Yeah, everything's going to fry instantly. Yeah, I had a let's say, what do you want to show anything else in here on this website before we leave it and just talk in general?
Oh, there's a bunch of stuff people can poke around. There's some Faraday bags, which are just shielded bags on there. It's pretty good stuff. All my books are listed at the top if you guys are looking for some fun fictional reads. There's a book called a series called the Survivalist series, which is, it's actually about a pandemic that happens and everybody's, you know, sort of killed off, and you got a U.S. Marshal running around the country kind of making things right. It's an interesting, fun story. And then there's a few, like you said, some preparedness books as well.
Yeah, Judgment Day. I saw Judgment Day. That sounds like where we may be heading. Not careful.
Yeah.
All right, EMF, RFID, survival symbol. Let's see, Faraday, heavy block. All right, you got a lot of stuff in here.
Yeah, it's a lot of different bags of different sorts and some interesting products. There's a whole bunch of EMP stuff in there, from ferrites to gaskets to
Cloth. So,
yeah, there's some cloth. It's just conductive cloth. I tested 25 different cloths and picked one that's a good cloth for covering cars and generators, just to give you some shielding.
Yeah, I saw your videos on YouTube on that. So yeah, he did a lot of experimentation with stuff. Solar power ferret bundle. Guys, there you go. You put in a solar system, go here, buy this stuff. Audio books, you can bundle stuff about us, return. So, you know, this is a lot of excellent things in here. So just go here. I'll put the link in the notes, and you can go here and check out Bradley's stuff here. Oh, there you go. See, here's another place. Just scroll down here and you can click on books and quite a few things here. Oh yeah, here's it. Does this take you straight to your YouTube channel?
I think there are links to the video. It's on a separate page here, but they are YouTube videos.
So if you double click them, it'll take you into the channel. Is all your videos on this page?
They're not all on there. There's, I don't know, there might be 15 or 20 on there, but it gets you over into the YouTube page when you watch one.
Yeah, so what you do is you just come in here. Now, all right, so here is a garbage can set up as a Faraday cage, guys. And that works pretty good, but I think you got to like double click these usually to get into the YouTube channel itself. He's got tons of videos on YouTube. So go check him out, subscribe to his channel, bang the update notification bell, and click all. Dr. Bradley's a straight up guy, and all this stuff comes to you as pure science, pure engineering. There's no politics in this, I don't think.
No, I don't bring any politics to it. I try and keep it pretty factual.
About properly sealing sort of an ad hoc Faraday cage, which a lot of people like to use these galvanized garbage cans, which are great. I've tested them. As long as you properly seal the lip around the can.
Yeah, I've got me some aluminum metallized tape to use for that.
Yeah.
So that's what I've got. So there's a lot of good videos here, guys. I mean, just go in here. His channel is EMP Doctor, and you can click on it here. You can see I'm subscribed. I banged the update notification bell. I got all clicked. And that's what you don't want to see. You don't want to see our power lines looking like that. If you see that, you will know we're having a very bad day. If you see that, you better say, I hope you better thank me for having invested in hand powered tools. And if you hadn't already done that, then you need to do it. That's why I show some videos just walking around the flea market where I'm just looking for hose and hand powered tools, Arthur. I think that's something we've got to stock up on. So, you know, he's got a lot of good content in here. He's got 81 videos. Every one of them is pure gold. So go in and check this stuff out, guys. Faraday DIY Faraday box. So, and the key thing, what a Faraday cage is based on something called Gauss law. All the charge on a conductor, if it's a sphere or a box, all the negative charge goes to the outside of the conductor, and that's what really shields you from other stuff coming in. And at certain wavelengths, it can be a mesh, but it depends on what kind of wavelength you're trying to shield from. But I would want solid metal, since you're trying to do an all threats protection. So check this out. Go in here and subscribe to EMP Doctor. Check out the website. Like I said, if you're going to do a solar system, check out those ferrets.
50 dB of shielding out of them, which is plenty.
So a lot of good stuff, a lot of good content here. Hey, there's one of my buddies, with Prepper Nurse One. He's live right now. Not when y'all get, by the time y'all watch this video, probably not. Anyway, I'll stop that share. So talk to us about, so we talked about the home. The home is where we live. It's our biggest asset. Most of our preps in our home. We don't want our preps all burn up with our house. So this is all important stuff. The next thing is people want to protect the automobiles. Of course, you got to bear in mind that unless you've got some way to make your own fuel. And I do have a link to a flex fuel package below. If you want to make alcohol, you can do it with your fuel injector system if you've got that system, but you better make sure you got your vehicle protected from EMP. So do you recommend people buy the computers and certain key electronics and just keep an extra set in a Faraday cage?
Yeah, if they're familiar enough with their electronics to change them out, that's a good idea. I'll be honest with you, cars are so sophisticated nowadays. It's, unless you're a mechanic or you spent some time around vehicles, you probably don't know what's what anyway. So that's a tough thing to do really, effectively.
Well, and it's really distributed now. At one time, they had maybe a single computer module in a vehicle when they first started computerizing them in about 1987 or so. Volkswagen's much earlier, but the Beetles were computerized way back. They had diagnostics in them from way back. But the other vehicles, they started putting a computer-controlled fuel injection and diagnostics in about 87. I think 86 and below or without that. 86 is one of those gray years. Some did, some didn't. But so what you need to do, if it's a single computer module, it's easy. But a lot of vehicles have got the stuff distributed all through them. Now, some of those systems may or may not be critical to the operation of the vehicle itself. So, you can get an owner's manual, check that kind of stuff out, maybe talk to a mechanic, but that might be beyond you. Now, here's the truth about automobiles. We haven't done sufficient EMP testing on automobiles to know how they will be impacted. A lot of people will come out and tell me where they'll all be fried. Well, we actually don't know, because an automobile is a partial, not good, but a partial, albeit leaky, Faraday cage, and it's on rubber tires. It's got a lot of metal, except for your fiberglass cars. And so you might luck out, and it might just be the direction your vehicle is pointed versus the wave. It might be some fluke random thing that why your vehicle might make it and somebody else's won't. Of course, if you're on the road and a bunch of vehicles are dead, the road's going to be clogged up. So you're still in a tight place. But what do you reckon? You have cloth that you can put over your vehicle that will shield it. You probably have surge protectors put inside. I like the cloth idea, at least when you're not running the car. Now, I don't know, I haven't had much experience driving my car with a cloth shield over it while I'm driving it.
Yeah, don't do that. Yeah. So you're right. I like the cloth idea too. It's the best protection you can really do, which is to put your car in a Faraday cage of some sort, right?
There you go. Exactly.
Yeah. Now, if you can do all different kind of Faraday cages, you can spend many thousands of dollars on Faraday tents and all kinds of things. But the cloth is a lower cost option. Still expensive, don't get me wrong. But it's conductive cloth that you basically make a big car cover over and you drape it all the way down to the earth ground. It does a pretty good job. It does about 30 dB of shielding, which is enough for almost any car to survive probably. The problem is, like you said, you're cruising down the interstate, you're not having that cloth draped over you. And so maybe much of the time it wouldn't really be protecting you. So there's not a great single way to protect cars, like 100%, yep, it'll definitely survive. Again, this is one of those cases of you're going to put some things in place that might help your chances. And so what I did is I came up with some transient protection devices. They're called traps, transient reducing auxiliary plugs, that you can wire across the battery. You can put in your cigarette lighter, and you can put some ferrites in around the main battery cables. And all that does is it try and access places that'll sync out some of that very high frequency energy before the computers get zapped. It's about as effective as I know a way to do, which is this multi-point protection inside of a vehicle. but it's not 100%. There's, like you said, you don't really know what the threat is to a car. There hasn't been enough testing done, but it improves your chances. Even if only 20% of the cars are damaged, 20% is quite a lot of cars if you got a few 100 million cars in the United States. So it would be a huge catastrophe if we lost, all of the highways congested, like you said, and a whole bunch of cars damaged. It would be a challenge for any of us. And having a vehicle that at least could get us around a little bit would be pretty important. So it's worth protecting, I think.
Of course, as a prepper, and Arthur would second me on this, it would be good to put a bug out bag in your vehicle and carry it around.
Oh yeah.
A get home bag, if nothing else. That's what we usually call them, a get home bag, something just to get you home. And it don't need to be that substantial unless you love and commute a couple hundred miles a day. And if you got that kind of situation, then you might have to head out in the woods and survive for a while, because that's a long hike.
Yeah. I used to keep a list on my website of all the stuff people might want to keep in their trunk as a get home bag, and it's still in my disaster handbook, but I don't think it's on the website anymore. Very good advice. You want
to just off the top of your head, what comes to mind first off?
Well, it's not the exciting stuff, I mean, it's things like a spare pair of shoes and a blanket and some water and things that, are just sort of fundamentals is where you start with. Having a good flashlight, things like that. And yeah, you can get more sophisticated and be able to start a fire and all these other things. That's all good. But a lot of times it's just like, if you've ever been stranded on the side of the road, it's those basic things that keep you out of trouble. And so that's where you start at.
I was stranded 200 miles out in the ocean one time on a boat with no motors, because I was trying to make it ashore or closer to shore to communicate, because my satellite phone wasn't working as advertised. It was a Global Star phone, and I was trying to get authority to launch a rocket. And my boat totally broke down, and we didn't have any comms. We couldn't get no signal with anybody. We were way too far off from the mothership, way too far off from shore. 2 broke down engines.
Wait for rescue.
And I had zip. When I took off the trip, I had a bag of salty peanuts and a Mountain Dew. and I left at midnight. The main ship. I was supposed to be on a recovery boat. So we're floating in the water, and this is in October in Gulf of Mexico, and it was hot as a firecracker out there in that water all day, and I had nothing to drink, and salty and food. And I'm gonna tell you what, the worst thing you can drink for thirst is a soda pop of any kind. So that was a bad combination, but I didn't realize I was gonna be gone that long, those kind of things, and I was in a hurry, and I should have known better.
Yeah.
Typically I would have, but it was just one of those things. I was focused on getting the mission off, getting our rocket launched. So I was working with Eglin Air Force Base for our range scheduling, but that's another story. We've had our adventure. So and I've been stranded 200 miles out in the wilderness in Alaska and had to walk home once. That was interesting. So I think I mentioned that one of my videos. But some of these things happen, guys. You can get stranded just in everyday life. But now that we're looking at potential for war, we're looking at potentials for EMP, we're looking at solar coronal mass ejections,
cyber attacks, you name it.
Cyber attacks. Oh, there's too much coming at us right now. And right now we know that Russia's actually being cyber attacked real heavily by people from over here, including Anonymous. And they're hitting the Russians hard. Well, the Russians may strike back. And how will they strike? We've known for years that our power grid is vulnerable. We have Chinese backdoor components and a lot of elements in our power grid. This has been proven to us by Command Sergeant Major Mike Baby. Do you remember Mike Baby from the conference?
Oh yes, I sure do. Yeah.
I get him on the channel a lot, and I just finally got around to interviewing Colonel Tommy Waller. So we had a lot of good conversations outside the conference, just over dinner, didn't we? And with Dr. Pry. So that's one of the things I like about these conferences, is just the chance that we all get to talk to each other. But all right, let's go ahead for everybody else's benefit. So we've covered. What else would you do for a car? What else?
Yeah, so for cars, I'd say if you want, you can get a cloth cover, a conductive cloth cover. If not that, maybe get some of the transient protection devices. They're all listed on the website. And there's not a lot else you can do. I mean, because you don't know its susceptibilities. Cars are all different. Every car is a little bit different. So it's one of those things you can be prepared for it not to work. One thing I will say is if some reason the car were to stop working when you're driving, don't assume it's dead. Get it off safely to the side of the road, shut it off, see if you can restart it. If that doesn't work, disconnect the battery, reattach it, and try it again. A lot of times you can reset those systems and survive them.
Oh, there you go. That's some of the best advice I've heard. Awesome. That's a good idea. It wouldn't hurt to throw a bicycle in the back of the car.
Yeah, that's a great piece of advice. Yeah.
I have done that. The bicycle. I used to ride bicycles, and I'd take them into the arsenal to ride them, because riding on the civilian roads was a lot riskier than riding them on the arsenal. People are more polite on the military base than they are outside.
Yeah.
In general. So that's the ideas for your car. So we talked about home, we talked about solar power. Now, personal electronics. So we've talked a little bit about Faraday cages. How would you like to go further into that and the bags? Talk a little bit more about that.
Yeah, so like you said, a Faraday cage is really just a conductive enclosure, right? And a perfect Faraday cage has no seams, no openings, or anything else. In reality, they have to have some kind of opening, and you have to deal with that. But
got to get in and out of it. So then you got
to get in and out of it.
Yeah, the best Faraday cage is it would be like a total metallic sphere. And whatever you got in it's sitting on something insulated. That's another thing you got to bear in mind. You don't want to set your devices right on the conductor, because they might be susceptible. But on an electrical conductor or a sphere, electrical box, a metallic box, the charge, if it's got a charge on it, it's all going to be on the outside of it. And the charge tries to get away. All these charges, if you do differential and do calculus, all these little elements of a charge are all trying to escape each other because they repel each other. That's why they all go to the outside. And Gauss was the mathematician, electrodynamics man who discovered this in what year? Back in the 1800s or 1700s, way back. Most of our physics laws go way back. It just took us a few hundred years to learn how to make devices with them. So we had a lot of brilliant. We stand on the shoulders of a lot of brilliant people, fortunately. And Gaussian law is the basics that gives us the Faraday cage.
Yep, that's right. And so the idea of it is you get a conductive enclosure, and then, like you said, there's a bunch of different ways to do it. You can use metal garbage cans. We talk about that in that video. You can do these conductive bags, which kind of look like Mylar food bags, but they're actually different. They have more sputtered metal in them than typical Mylar bags. They're just thicker metal. And they do a great job. If you get some good quality ones and seal them up, they'll give you 50 or 60 dB of shielding, which is enough. You can buy some even higher quality bags, which are the kind that are sort of lined with sort of a mesh metal, and they'll give you 80 to 100 dB of shielding. They'll block cell phone signals and everything else. And so those are really nice if you're trying to do more than EMP protection, but maybe prevent your cell phone from being tracked. I know you've got probably a little pouch around your phone. Those things offer really good shielding, and they're just basically little Faraday cages too. So
yeah,
there's a whole bunch of different options.
I had one and I lost it. Do you sell those?
Yeah, we got some on the website, some little phone ones.
How much are they?
I don't know. It's been a while, $20 or something like that.
I might go in and get me one of those, because I had one. I've seen them either misplaced or somebody liberated it.
Yeah, that happens too.
So, those are nice to have, because one thing, your phone's not going to ring when you got it inside of one of those. And if you're worried about people, you know how the phone's listening to everything you say. Well, that will stop that.
Yeah.
And your phone doesn't even know where you go. I get a report. Google sends me a report and tells me where I drove around in the county. They go, really? Wow. So yeah. If you
My kids are always remarking that the phone's listening to them, because every time they're talking about something, their phone starts advertising it to them shortly thereafter.
Oh yeah, I've seen that. Definitely seen that. So so these have a lot of uses to them. It's more than just surviving. But right now, I tell you, I'm really worried about where we're at right now, Arthur. The prospects are not good. We came so close in the Cuban Missile Crisis, and this to me may be. I'm hearing people say they think this is worse than the Cuban Missile Crisis.
Well, my worry is that you have the problems with Russia, which are terrible all the way around. There should be worry in everybody's mind. And then you've got people like China looking at it as an opportunity, right? Because they have their eye on Taiwan. And then you have North Korea, who just recently realized, hey, we're not in the spotlight anymore. We need to do something to act up. All of this stuff kind of comes together, and before long, you've got multiple things happening you got to deal with. And we're very close.
Well, Arthur, I'm 62. I was 2 years older in the Cuban Missile Crisis, so I grew up in the Cold War era. But for most of my younger life, that we had two powers to worry about, United States and Russia. We came close several times. Today, we live in a multipolar nuclear war. There's many people, many organizations that pose threats to each other, nations right now.
Sure.
And a lot of them are aiming at us. Some of them, like say Pakistan and India, are really focused on each other. We don't really hear about EMPs and that. We might get a little effect of a nuclear winter should they get into it. Radiation, it could affect us here dramatically if they get into war with each other over there. But it's just the prospects, the chances are going up. The more the world diversifies and the number of people that's got these devices, the more chance you get to somebody that's got his hand on the switch might not be exactly 100% stable, or his worldview might be a little bit too far skewed off to one side or the other. He might think that we're coming over there to eat him and just decide he's got to push that big red button. I don't know, what might be behind this. There was a command to launch a nuclear torpedo on American warship in the Cuban Missile Crisis, but the torpedo man decided he would not follow the order. And that's why we're here today. So, we've come very close, and I'm sure you got some buddies down you're not too far from Wallops. How many miles are you from Wallops flights?
Yeah, we're not far from Wallops. I've been there a number of times.
Yeah, me too. I love Chicoteague Island, the wild ponies and all that. But that's in the middle of nowhere. It seems like, to have a place that remote on the East Coast of the United States is amazing. It makes an excellent rocket launch site. Well, Wallops had a bunch of guys up at Flowers, and some of them other guys that were Wallops, I don't know if you remember any of the guys over there from their program, were over launching, with the guys launching that Black Brant rocket from Norway. That what they put in, they were told to notify a certain desk, and back then it was Russia, after the Soviet Union, to notify a certain military desk that they were going to do the launch, and they did. And the guy said, "Okay, fine," but he didn't notify the people back in Moscow.
Oh boy!
This missile goes up, the Black Brant sounding rocket, and the commands and Moscow see this, and they had the belief that if we were to attack them, the first thing we would have done was send up a single Polaris missile out over the Barents Sea, or Trident or whatever, and that we would EMP them, and then by the time the EMP hits them, that our missiles from our ground forces will probably be already over the way, just not quite over the horizon yet to be detected, and then they would just come in and hit them right away. And Yeltsin was president of Russia, so everybody was laid back. Gosh, the Soviet Union fell apart. We're all hugs and kisses and peace. And Yeltsin was the president of Russia, and suddenly they thought we were launching on them. And his generals were telling him, "Launch, launch, launch! We got to launch! This is a protocol. We're being attacked." And he just thought, "I can't believe that his buddy Bill Clinton was launching on him." And so he waited a little bit, just long enough till they saw the stages for this thing falling off, and they figured out it wasn't coming at him. But he had people yelling launch at him.
Yeah.
And if it had been the same mindset of them, or maybe if it had one more glass of vodka, we might not be here today.
Yeah, that's possible.
If it had been Putin, we probably would be cooking.
Yeah.
So I don't know, guys. We came very close then, and it was just an accident. And several times, computer tapes, they would accidentally wrote a simulation, and it would run. And they would think they thought it was a real thing. There were component problems. We've had too many close calls.
Yeah, that was the theme of a movie back a long time ago. You remember Matthew Broderick and War Games? It was very interesting theory. Yeah.
Yeah, and then the kids playing games and lots of war. So yeah, we've had too many close calls, but and now with more players in the lineup, it gets far more complicated. Mathematically, it's not linear. When you start adding players in the game like that, and I'm just referring to it in game theory because the numerical way you'd look at it, does not the probability of that go up almost? It's not linear, is it? Not almost exponential.
Yeah, I would think, because you got lots of possibilities and permutations of it, right?
That's the problem. When you get all these different permutations, which the different possibilities, all these extra players, it's scary, guys. This is why we need to prep. This is why we need to get ready, and this is why you guys got to take it serious. And then we got to somewhere down the world figure out if we could ever come to peace with these things. And the problem is where we run our politics is that nations, like Muammar Gaddafi decided to give up his nukes. He thought he'd be a good little boy. And what was the reward he got for that? All these other countries look at that and they go, "Oh no, I'm not giving these things up. Look what happened to Muammar Gaddafi."
Well, look what happened to Ukraine. They gave up their nuclear weapons and they got invaded
Yeah,
by
man, look
Russia.
at them today. So all these countries looking around there, oh, I ain't giving this stuff up.
Yeah.
Well, but that's a problem. So we international politics, as conducted by the United States, as conducted by Russia, all the big boys, we've been bad boys, and we've not made the world safer. We've made it far more dangerous. I don't know how we get back from this. Maybe we need to be cheering Elon Musk and hoping that Starship flies. I'm working on SLS, but I don't think it's going to fly often enough to get enough people up there.
Yeah.
So I may have to cheer a Starship and hope that thing. But I don't know. He's got so many new technologies. He's trying all at once. It's risky. But anyway, the low TRL, as we call it in engineering, on multiple items, which you don't normally do at an engineering project. But hey, he's got guts. What can you say? All right. Well, what would you like to say more about protecting home, car, and electronics? Anything else you'd like to say, or just any?
Yeah, we kind of covered the basics of the EMP thing. There's a lot of misinformation out there, so I urge people to be careful about what you read. A lot of people say stuff they don't know what they're talking about. So, I don't know everything, that's for darn sure, but there's just a lot of people who think they know things that they maybe don't know. So just be careful about it. Try and put some common sense on things. And if you don't believe something, ask some other people and see if you can get to the root of it.
Amen. Amen. Probably the biggest time to be concerned is when the person comes across like they absolutely know. This is the answer. I mean, a lot of people get an idea, and once they get an idea, that little light goes off in their head, and then they define the whole universe according to the new world view that coalesces around that little idea. We get a lot of there's propaganda, which is deliberate misinformation, but then there's just a lot of people whose worldview gets skewed, and there's just a lot of that going on right now, and everybody is running around. A lot of people are scared right now. So there's a good reason that there's so much of that going around, but just keep your eyes wide open and head on the swivel. Don't buy anything 100%, nothing. Question everything. But and there's a lot of good experts out here you can turn to who can give you a little better bearing. But you'll get 2 PhDs like Arthur Bradley, experts in their field, and y'all fighting like cats and dogs over some little technical point. Will you not?
Yeah, that happens all the time. Believe me.
So I find it really funny that people will watch a YouTube video. Well, that guy's a doctor and he said blah, blah, blah. I said, well, they don't even make walking around sense. And that's not his field anyway. Why are you paying attention? Well, he's a doctor. He knows.
Yeah.
I go, look, I know so many PhDs. I'm not a PhD, but I work with you guys all the time. So I appreciate what you've done.
Well, it reminds me of an old story. When I was a young man, very young, I was probably about 13. I worked with a guy who he used to fight in, this was before MMA, but he used to fight in these amateur fights, right?
Oh, okay.
And make a little money on the side. He was a cook in the kitchen that I worked in. And I was mentioning something about somebody said, oh, but he's a black belt, you got to be real careful. He said, I don't care about the color of his belt. I mean, it wasn't anything about credentials. It was about what you could do when it came down to it, and what you knew and didn't know.
Amen.
And he was a force to be reckoned with. He didn't have any belt, but he could sure knock your block off, So it was a lesson that I learned, that you don't always just look at what people think that they know. You have to sort of dig deep, figure it out yourself a little bit.
Well, the thing I like about Dr. Bradley is he's got a lot of practical hands-on experience in his lab. He's tested this stuff out. So when he develops something and tells you what its characteristics are, you can take it to the bank. And he's not on here making a lot of false pretenses like certain entities out there. And we're just giving you the straight skinny. What you can do is buy your risk down. There's no guarantees, but you can buy your risk down, and that may be something that helps you sleep better at night. So we got a lot at risk today, so that's something you really need to think about. Okay, everyone. Arthur, any last word?
No, I just say maybe one final salute to those folks over in Ukraine fighting for their lives.
Amen. Amen. Amen to that. So a lot of people are picking sides on that too, but I'm gonna tell you what, you got a lot of innocent people out there in the streets, and they're being pummeled. So I got to have my heart going out to those people. All right, Arthur, I appreciate it. Thank you very much. I appreciate everybody for coming here and watching the video tonight. We'll have a lot more of this kind of stuff coming up, so just stay tuned. And everyone take care. Hang on for a minute, Arthur. And with that, I'm going to say, Greg out.